What's up, everybody? Good evening. I know it's kind of late. I usually don't post videos this late unless there's like a game that runs late, a nighttime game. But I got some stuff I want to talk about here, and I don't want to step on the pregame video and the Husky stream tomorrow. So we're doing it now. I want to talk a little bit more about Geno Smith after 1 month of NFL football. 1 month into the season. I want to talk about Geno a little bit more because there's obviously been a lot said since that Lions game because he played so well and he's playing really well over the first month of the year. But even beyond the things that have already been said, the things that are obvious, I don't want to sell Geno short, right? If he's doing something right, I want to give him credit for it. I want to talk about it. I want to be real about it. So the easy, commonly used, and valid narrative around Geno Smith right now is that the reason why he is having so much success goes back to that quote that Carol had about Geno a few days ago. He does what you tell him. The implication being that Geno is willing to check it down. Geno is willing to throw a short pass, a quick pass, a hot route. Geno's willing to get the ball out of his hands quickly, pick up 4 or 5 yards, and live to see 2nd and 5, rather than Wilson, who didn't do what you told him to do based off. I mean, that was the implication from Carroll's quote, and he would try to make every play a 60-yard bomb. So that was the advertised reason why things are going so well with Geno right now compared to how they were going last year with Wilson, and why things are going so badly right now in Denver with Wilson compared to how good things are going with Geno right now. He takes the short stuff. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly. He obeys the tenets of this offense, this Shane Waldron offense. He's willing to live to see 2nd and 4 instead of 2nd and 18. He's not going to try to be Superman every single play. And there are definitely plenty of metrics that back up that narrative. And there's certainly, I'm not going to sit here and say that's wrong. I mean, you look at Geno Smith, his air yards. Remember, I talked about air yards a ton last year because it was a big thing for me with Wilson. Geno Smith's air yards through 4 games are about 7.9. I think Amazon has them at 8, but it's right around there, 7.9, 8. Russell Wilson, over his last 4 years in Seattle, his air yards average over those 4 years would be about 9.2, 9.3. So big, significant difference there, more than a full yard. And I know it doesn't sound like a lot maybe, but in this context it is. So yeah, Geno Smith is not trying to go downfield as much as Russell Wilson was. Geno Smith is taking more checkdowns, more short stuff. So that all pretty well lines up with that narrative. And there's plenty of other evidence that indicates this as well. Like, if we go on over to Next Gen Stats, one of my favorite pages on the internet, Amazon AWS is doing a ton of really fun stuff with some of these advanced metrics. I advise you to check this page out in your free time. You can go to the quarterback section on their Next Generation Stats and see that Geno Smith is right near the bottom of the league in aggressiveness as a quarterback. And what that means is that he is not taking risks. He is throwing the ball to open receivers who have easy catches to make. He is one of 4 quarterbacks through 4 games, 5 in the case of Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson, who has an aggressiveness percentage below 10. And you can see that near the top of this list, quarterbacks like Jameis Winston, Trubisky, they're up close to 25. So being below 10% is, in a lot of contexts, you would say that's a bad thing, right? Like, oh, you want your quarterback to be aggressive. I think that AWS uses the benchmark of an aggressive throw as there is a defender within a yard in coverage from the receiver, the intended receiver. So basically, Geno Smith makes about 10% of his throws to receivers that are tightly covered, meaning one defender is within a yard or less of the receiver. And in some contexts, you would be like, well, okay, that's kind of bad. You want your quarterback to be aggressive. You want your quarterback to at least be a little more aggressive than this. Maybe you don't want Jameis Winston 25%. Maybe that's a little too crazy for you. I don't think that's what you want. I don't think you want a quarter of your throws to be risks. But you do want it generally to be higher than 10%. But here's the thing. See, this lines up with what we're seeing. Geno is not taking a ton of risks. He's and yet, here's the thing. Here's the thing that really kind of threw me for a loop when I was looking at Geno stuff this week, trying to put this all into context. Boom. Completion percentage above expected. CPOE. Know that stat. Geno Smith is leading the league in CPOE, and it's not even close. He is double second place. It is not even a contest right now. Geno's running away with it. Completion percentage above expected is basically a measure of how good you are above average of completing your passes based off the passes you're throwing. So if somebody like a Jameis Winston was completing 77% of his passes despite being so aggressive, his CPOE would be like 8 million%, because it would be so crazy that he's taking all these risks and yet he still has a super high completion percentage. But it's not Jameis Winston at the top. It's Geno Smith, the guy who is taking very few chances, is hitting on enough of those balls where he's taking a chance to where it's literally lapping the field in terms of success rate above expected. So what this means is, I think the way to put it in layman's terms is, Geno Smith is not taking very many chances, but when he does take those chances, they pay off. They are paying off big time. That's the only way you could possibly have a number like this when clearly your quarterback is not taking a ton of risks. He's actually trying to keep things very simple. It must mean that on the rare occasion where he does take a risk, it's paying off. Because it's not like he's not taking any. I mean, you go to the top plays, the most improbable completions so far this year in 2022, you'll see Geno Smith on this list twice. He's got the number 6 completion to Metcalf in week 3, 15.6% odds of a completion. He's also here on the list again at 13. Had a completion to Will Dissly, the touchdown to Dissly in the Lions game, 13th most unlikely. And that's actually a play that I highlighted here because I remember watching this live and looking at the replay and I was like, that is not a trivial throw. I mean, I took this screenshot from the YouTube reel and, okay, this is Geno Smith. He's just about to release the ball. The ball is just about to leave his hands. This is Dissly, and this is the defender on Dissly. I don't know if you guys can make that out. But they're basically running a three-legged sack, like one of those three-legged races. Dissly is not open. This is a throw over the middle into the end zone. It's like going to be, what, about 19, 20 yards down the field from the line of scrimmage. And Geno makes the throw, and he hits it, and he gets a touchdown. And the odds of this play being a completion to Will Dissly are about 21%, according to Amazon. And it makes sense why. I mean, look at the coverage. This is as closely covered as you're going to see on most NFL plays. So it's not all just the simple stuff that Geno is doing right. It's more than that. And look, if you go back and look at some of the air yard stats, here's more evidence of what I'm saying here. Here's more indications that Geno is doing more than just the basic stuff. His completed air yards per completion is 6.4, so just under 6.5. His intended air yards per attempt is about 7.9. Completed air yards per completion 6.4. Russell Wilson last year, let's just look at last year because this was the year when it really started to go wrong. 9.9 air yards per pass attempt. 6.7 yards per completion. So basically, even though Russell Wilson is pushing the ball down the field way more than Geno and was throwing the ball deep way more and was trying to go for those big plays way more, 2 extra yards of air yards per attempt. He was only able to actually muster an additional 0.3 yards of completed air yards per completion. So that means when Wilson was taking his shots, and he took many, many shots, when he was going for it, it wasn't really working that much. But you look at Geno on his side of things. Geno, when he takes his shots, he's cashing in on them. And that's how you get to something like this. Because here's the other thing, by the way. Geno Smith is not just hitting his back foot and getting the ball out of his hands on every single play. Like, yeah, that's happening. But it's not happening all the time. Like, if you look at the time to throw stat on Next Gen Stats, Geno Smith's near the bottom. Geno Smith is holding onto the ball an average of 2.84 seconds per play. That's more than Wilson. He's in the top 8. He's 8th in the NFL. There are only a few quarterbacks holding onto the ball longer than he is. So he is not just playing hot potato with the football. No, he's dropping back. He's willing to scan the defense. He's willing to make a read, willing to take a hit, willing to trust his pass protection. And it's not just him playing remedial NFL offense. He is actually doing things in a way that in some ways is very different than what we've seen before, but in a few ways is not. Okay, Geno is not just getting the ball out of his hands immediately every time he drops back. He is doing that a lot. But there's more to it than that, and I think that makes it all the more impressive. So that is what I can say about Geno after having a chance to really think about it, look at some stuff here. It's interesting, right? Obviously, he is playing within the offense better than Wilson ever did. Especially last year when Wilson got this new offense and dug deeper into his old tendencies. But Geno is scaling back the risk significantly. He's not taking anywhere near the risks that Wilson did, but he is taking some. And when he takes them, he's winning those gambles. When he throws the ball into tight coverage, when he throws the ball in a place where something bad could happen, bad things are not happening. In some ways, it's kind of the best of both worlds. And this is not me trying to suddenly advocate for, oh, let's give Geno $100 million. Let's make him our franchise quarterback for the next half decade. No, this is just me giving credit where credit is due. So I'm not on that wagon yet. But what I can say is this. Geno is doing a lot right. It's not just keeping things simple. He is keeping it simple. But even when he's not keeping things simple, great things are happening. So that was just some of the deep dive into the stuff that I saw. When I saw this chart, I was like, okay, there's something else going on here. Geno Smith's completion percentage above expected is like 12%. No one else is at 5. This is insane. I don't know. To those of you out there who know what Geno Smith's reputation is and know what even the narrative is now, this doesn't make a lot of sense. It shouldn't be possible for a quarterback like Geno Smith, who doesn't take a lot of risks, to be high on this chart, because there aren't enough throws that he makes that should be incomplete. And yet, here we are. All right, guys. Hope I gave you something to think about. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Should be on Twitch fairly soon, and we'll talk about all this. We'll talk about the Mariners today. Great game. And, yeah, hope to see you guys in the near future. Go Hawks. And, hey, it's not just keeping it simple. There is some complicated stuff happening here. There is some difficult stuff going on here. And Geno's nailing it. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks.